Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
On behalf of Wrasslin Raw podcast, we would like to extend a sincere apology for the unprofessional conduct of Jason, son of Rob Bartlett, last week during our Royal Rumble episode to Lawrence Taylor and his family. As a result, Mr. Bartlett's actions, he has been suspended without pay.
Yeah. Joe Gimateo.
I would like to have a moment of silence for the XFL.
Yeah.
Dead already.
Man, what a shame. And it was doing so well, too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. But first, a couple very special shout-outs. First up, our listener in California that downloaded and marathoned all of our episodes. To you, listener in California, please reach out to us. We just want to make sure you're okay and not in distress of any kind, please. We worry about you. And second, Tom in the UK. Tom is a loyal listener that messaged us with some kind words and well wishes. We just wanted to say, keep safe and keep in touch. We're happy to answer any questions or comments you throw at us. It was very good hearing from you, man. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the podcast and keep listening to it. So, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on January 23rd, 1995. This Raw was recorded at the Manatee Civic Center in Palmetto, Florida, and features Vince McMahon and the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, let's get into it. The intro. Vince is deadpan serious here. Somebody has died, I think. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe his dignity and faith in himself in the business. We don't know. There is an important announcement that needs to be made. Please, let's all just have a moment of silence while Vince lays it down for us. On behalf of the World Wrestling Federation, we would like to extend a sincere apology for the unprofessional conduct of Scott Bam Bam Bigelow yesterday at the Royal Rumble. To Lawrence Taylor and to his family. As a result of Mr. Bigelow's actions, he has been suspended without pay. And we're going to go straight into the intro sequence now. And it's like nothing ever happened. Welcome, everyone, to Palmetto, Florida. Welcome, everyone, to the Manatee Civic Center. And welcome to Monday Night Raw. A warm welcome, everyone, please, for Vince's co-host and the winner of the 1995 Royal Rumble, Shawn Michaels. He told us so. Yes, folks, Shawn Michaels was able to hang out with Pam Anderson. And now he's going to get a shot at the WWF Championship at the upcoming pay-per-view Wrestlemania. Speaking of champions, the Smoking Guns are here now. They're waiting to take on the newly crowned champions. This is going to take us into our first match of the night. The Smoking Guns defeat the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Sparkplug Holly by pinfall in 15 minutes and 20 seconds to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. As the Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart, are heading down to the ring, Vince informs us that the reason the Smoking Guns had to leave the tag team tournament was because of a rodeo injury. I swear to God, guys, I tried to come up with a way to make that funny or to play on that somehow, but I think it kind of stands on its own. The Cinderella team defeated Bam Bam and Tatanka at the Royal Rumble, and now here comes the Kid and Bob Holly, and Vince calls them the Cinderella team once again. Take a shot every time Vince uses the phrase Cinderella team. They're going to soak in the moderate crowd pop that lit up at the beginning of the 1-2-3 Kids music and the pyro that comes with it. And that's a good thing, because they're going to be about a half-hour delay while the Smoking Guns take off their entrance gear. That's just exaggeration, folks. It's more like 3 minutes. Bob Holly sure looks proud of himself. Wouldn't want anything to happen to that feeling of pride and accomplishment now, would we, guys? Huh? Yeah. Vince is going to put out the call-in line now. 1-900 Shameless. $1.49 a minute. Don't rack up your phone bills too high, kids. Billy and the Sparky Plug start us off, and the work isn't looking that bad. I'm surprised. The moves are seeming crisp so far, and Bob and Billy are both selling pretty well. After a few series, Bob Holly tags in the 1-2-3 Kid after Billy tags in Bart, and the Kid brushes Bart Gunn back to his corner with some light-footed, threatening motions. Bart Gunn backs away almost fearfully. It doesn't last long, however, because Bart Gunn takes control of events pretty quickly, and there's another tight sequence between them before the 1-2-3 Kid is able to slow things down long enough to tag Bob Holly back in. There's a great sequence now where the Smoking Guns try to set up a tag chain move with Bob Holly up on Bart Gunn's shoulders and Billy climbing to the top rope. Bob is able to wiggle free, push Bart into the corner, upsetting Billy so that Billy falls down and crotches himself on the turnbuckle. Bob shoves Bart out of the ring as the 1-2-3 Kid runs in from their corner, and Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid do a double-team superplex on Billy Gunn from the top rope. It was a simple series of events, but it was pulled off flawlessly, and I thought it looked great. There's a brief commercial break, and when we come back, Bob Holly is in control before tagging the Kid in. The tag champs have been mostly dominant for this match, but the Smoking Guns have been giving almost as much as they've been getting. There's another decent sequence with the Kid in control, but Billy Gunn rallies and lands the Fameasser. Now we have the drama of Billy struggling to get to Bart. It's a production, Billy trying to get there to make the tag. And he does. Billy eventually gets there to make the tag, and Bart Gunn starts kicking some major ass here. This ends with Bart and Billy landing their signature move on the 1-2-3 Kid. This is Bart holding up the Kid as if to instigate a sidewalk slam, while Billy simultaneously applies the Fameasser from the rear. Apparently there was a tag in there somewhere because Hebner puts Bart out of the ring, and there's some momentary confusion as Billy does not take advantage of the situation with a pin. We'll cut to a commercial here, and the tables have turned. The Smoking Guns are now dominating the 1-2-3 Kid, and Bob Holly can only stand on the apron and try not to wreck into anything. When we come back from commercial, Vince says the phrase Cinderella team yet again, and right now Cinderella is getting her ass kicked. The chain moves just keep happening here, and they are looking good, but there's something else going on. I'm wondering if you guys noticed it. There's a spot where it looks like Billy yells to Bart, "I can't hear him," or maybe "can't hear you." And then there's some confusion. Bart tags in Billy. The Smoking Guns land a great-looking missile drop kick into a vertical suplex on the Kid, and Billy doesn't pin at first. Then he turns around and is very clearly staring at something or somebody while he makes the pin. The Kid kicks out, and Billy sits there for a minute, then clearly gestures towards the back and mouths, "One more time?" but definitely not to the fans. Bart is tagged in and continues to beat the shit out of the 1-2-3 Kid before tagging Billy back in, then Bart again. It looks like they're maybe trying to stretch the match out. There's a brief technical glitch while Bob Holly gets a pin count on Billy Gunn, while Billy isn't fully on his shoulders. Much like Bob Holly himself, this match is starting to crash and burn, as whoever is doing the direction here has had enough. The Smoking Guns perform yet another tag chain finisher, and this time Billy does get the pinfall. Billy also manages to get the pinfall right in front of a couple of good-looking ladies sitting right there at ringside and gives them a little gesture of acknowledgement that causes them to giggle and turn away. The Smoking Guns are now the WWF Tag Team Champions, and they celebrate while Bob Holly writhes in the center of the ring, probably with a bad case of whiplash. Ryan, please get us going on the match that gave us our new Tag Team Champs.
Thank you. The first thing I wanted to mention was, as soon as I saw Bart Gunn walking down to the ring, all I could think about was this weekend when we were talking about the newest Dark Side of the Ring episode. with the Brawl for All debacle, and I just was feeling bad for him just seeing him walk down. It was hard not to think of that. But that aside, I was shocked. This was a good match. It started out, really entertaining. Bob Holly and Billy Gunn are in the ring, and I was thinking back to last week during the Royal Rumble episode, and when Bob Holly was in there, things were kind of downhill. They didn't look as good, but not the case today. Things were looking sharp. We're getting good slams out of everyone, and they just seem to be really working well together here. I got a pretty good chuckle at one point, though. Holly goes for the cover-up after some top rope maneuver, and he doesn't get the cover, and you could clearly see him scream shit, as if he's like actually pissed off that he didn't get the pinfall. Like he actually thought he was going to get it here. But second half of the match, we get the 1-2-3 kid in there with Billy Gunn, and Vince and Shawn Michaels are both just really talking up the kid, and Michaels basically completely drops being any sort of heel and is just pushing the kid here. And then immediately after they're talking up the 1-2-3 kid, it goes to like a 6 or 7 minute period where Bart and Billy are just tagging in each other as they beat the living shit out of the 1-2-3 kid. It was pretty comical. Eventually, though, the kid does get the tag, and it goes on. Outside of the match looking really solid, I would agree, like you said, it did almost seem towards the end as if they were trying to stretch it maybe a little bit. But I'm not going to complain too much here because it was a pretty enjoyable match and simple things too. Towards the end of the match, Holly goes up to the top rope and tries to pull off a simple, I'm not sure if he was going for a splash or whatever, but Billy at the right moment just quickly lifts up his foot and does this reversal. And it's just, the timing was perfect and it looked just great the way he hit and Bob Holly just flopped backwards. And, it's a simple move, but it was executed perfectly and I enjoyed it. A little bit long, but overall solid match and a surprise. Most of the time we don't get really strong matches that actually mean something this quick after a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed it overall. When's the last time we saw a title change on Raw? Probably not since the Head Shrinkers beating the Quebecers, right?
I think so.
I mean, it's been forever. Couple criticisms off the bat here. This just proves even more how useless that tag team tournament was if they were going to do this. I'm okay with the change. I don't know why it happened. I tried to research, why did this happen? And I couldn't find anything. I'm assuming it was a legit injury to one of the Smoking Guns, but to have them wrestle the next day just seems odd if it was an injury. I don't know. Do you guys know anything?
Well, I mean, I don't know for sure, but the injury to them was announced weeks and weeks, maybe even a month and a half ago, towards the beginning of the tournament.
Yeah.
So my guess is they got a legitimate injury, even though they must have been who they wanted to put the belt on, belts on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they did this little quick turnaround because they were actually healthy once it finally finished.
Yeah. It's similar to the Diesel title change, but that one, it was we don't want Diesel to take it off of a babyface. So let's do the quick change here. But Bob Holly, I think we've mentioned it before that he works really stiff. It's not really a criticism, but he works really stiff. It's easy to notice. He really takes bumps really hard too. They just look brutal as hell. Like when he gets slammed to the mat, it's like, oh God, it hurts to watch it. But overall, I thought the match was pretty entertaining. It was a great opening match for Raw. It was pretty fast paced through most of it. I love that Faymasser with Bart holding him up.
Yeah,
I think that should be their finish. That should be their finish.
It should be.
I like it better than the actual finisher. Yeah, and after watching Dark Side of the Ring with the Brawl for All, how badly did you guys want to see Bart Gunn just shoot, punch 1-2-3 Kid in the face?
Yeah, and then maybe head over and punch Vince.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. Overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. It was a very enjoyable match, aside from the confusion there at the end. And for the record, the confusion, for me at least, didn't take away from the match. It was just kind of like, okay, that's a little bit weird, but we'll keep it going.
It's almost like at this point, the tag belts could change every week and we wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Because it's the tag belts.
Well, that's a great point that you brought up earlier. The first thing that came to my mind as soon as you said it was automatically that, oh, I see. So the 1, 2, 3 Kid and Bob Holly are getting the Bret Hart treatment. Well, I guess technically the better comparison would be Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
They were the temporary placeholders while the real champs could be lined up for the win. And Ryan, as far as that boot at the very end there, I'm not sure how much of a work the sell on that was, as we'll see here upcoming. I mean, we'll get to it. I don't want to spoil anything because it's coming up very quickly. But
I mean, he's bleeding, so
yeah.
But whatever, it looked great.
Oh, well, yes, it absolutely did look great. Absolutely.
If only Bart would have shoot punched him right after.
The thing that I remember the most about all of the stuff that I've heard about the Brawl for All is the Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard episode, him and Pritchard and Conrad Thompson, about Bob Holly. And they did a pretty damn good job of putting over Bob Holly just for sheer toughness. It was kind of, according to that podcast at least, Bob Holly gained a lot of respect in the locker room during the Brawl for All for being the only person that really went toe-to-toe with Bart Gunn. I do believe Bart Gunn ended up winning on the points in their matchup, and that was the only time that Bart Gunn was unable to knock somebody out, I think.
Well, Butterbean.
Well, yeah, I mean in the legitimate Brawl for All, not the squash match that Vince arranged it to be at the very end. But anyway, we'll move it along here. We're going to have promotional consideration paid for by the following. This time, it's not going to be Diesel pitching Slim Jims, thank Christ. It's Bam Bam Bigelow.
There are two kind of snacks. One's for wimps and punks.
As Bam Bam explodes 2 bags of generic potato chips by slamming them together.
And the other's for me. Need a little excitement? Snap into a Slim Jim.
That's my best Bam Bam impersonation. I'm not sure how good it comes off, but that's the best it's going to get. So, real quick here, guys. First, Joe, and then Ryan. I want your opinions on Bam Bam's version of the Slim Jim commercial here, and I want a contrast and compare with Diesel and the Macho Man's versions, please.
Well, the commercial itself is slightly better. I still hate it, though. And I don't understand why you'd have a heel doing a Slim Jim commercial, but I don't know. I guess if you want to compare and contrast, I think it was a little bit better than Diesel's, but I hate them both.
Yeah.
I still wish for the Macho Man, but unlike Joe, I thought it was a lot better than Diesel's, but it still pales in comparison to the Macho Man.
Yeah, I'm going to lean more towards Ryan on this one. I thought it was much, much better than Diesel's, but obviously nobody can compare to the Macho Man, so... One thing I can say about it is that it seems like Bam Bam tried to put like his own flavor on it, as opposed to Diesel just being a mocking jackass in his. So, yeah, nothing compares.
Do you guys remember before Macho Man did Slim Jim commercials, the Warrior was doing
vaguely?
Them?
Yeah, vaguely as well.
Apparently, they got pissed off because the Warrior was like eating the Slim Jim and then spitting it out.
I did hear that, yeah.
Filming the commercials, yeah.
Because he, like, something about putting garbage in his body or something stupid like that.
You don't get a cut physique like that by eating Slim Jims.
Right.
Nope, you get it with anabolic steroids.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll move it here, and we're going to be back at ringside. Vince is going to interview the 1, 2, 3 Kid and Bob Holly. They gave it their all, but the toll was just too much to pay. Last night, Bam Bam and Tatanka just took too much out of them. The 1, 2, 3 Kid is going to cut a quick promo for us here. Golly gee, mister. Me and Bob both feel very disappointed. We gave the Smoking Guns a title shot, and they beat us fair and square. But then starts to say that the 1, 2, 3 Kid and Bob Holly gave the Smoking Guns a shot at the title within 24 hours of becoming champions. And they hope the Smoking Guns will, And that's where Vince interrupts them and says, "You knew what you were getting into." That whoever would have won at the Rumble would have faced the Smoking Guns here tonight. Now we get Bob Holly, and Bob is having trouble. "Thank you, Vince. Last night took its toll on us, and we were the underdogs. We managed to..." And here Bob Holly kind of twitches and has flashbacks of hitting the wall at the Snowflake Derby. Pull it out. And the 1-2-3 Kid has to interrupt him and request the same courtesy from the Smoking Guns that the Kid and Bob Holly gave to them, a rematch next week. Vince replies with, "Oh, so you want a rematch," in a bland voice before shuffling them off and just completely dismissing them from his mind. We're going to go to a Todd Pettingill Royal Rumble report that was filed at the Royal Rumble last night. But first, real quick, guys, Ryan first and then Joe. After what we saw in the match, and then with this promo, I think Bob Holly has a concussion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear to say he has a concussion.
Golly gee, Bob, let me finish this interview for you.
Yeah. Everything about this thing was hilarious. My favorite part my favorite part was Vince scolding the Kid. You knew what you were getting into. Just a fantastically awkward promo that was just hilarious to watch.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add. I mean, this was incredible. It wasn't live. This wasn't a live show. I don't know. I can't believe they left it in there.
Oh my God, I got tears coming out of my eyes. That was great though to watch. It was just like you could just see that there was nobody home in Bob Holly's eyes at all. That's a horrible thing to laugh about, but my God.
The scolding might have been. I thought maybe it was more funny than
it was. Now, in fairness, you knew good and well getting into the match.
Just cutting him off.
You knew what you were getting into.
That was good. We won't belabor the point, but suffice to say, if anybody wants to just enjoy this, please go watch it. It was great. We're going to move along to a final Royal Rumble report. That's right, folks. The Royal Rumble is over, and we still can't escape Todd Pettingill and his fucking Royal Rumble reports. Pettingill is going to give us highlights here. He basically gives us play-by-play on all three of the finishes that happened in the championship match between Diesel and Bret Hart. Pettingill finishes up that breakdown by reminding us all of the tender yet firm hug that Bret and Diesel shared in the ring, grasping each other and holding each other tightly. Two ports in the storm that was this match. Next up is the report on the IRS versus Undertaker match, which supposedly lived up to its unbelievable billing. I'm assuming that meant that nobody could believe that this was on a pay-per-view. Unfortunately, it was. Pettingill actually does a fair job of being excited about that match, and I have to give him credit because that's more energy than I would have been willing to expend on it. He winds up saying the phrase, "repossess the urn" 3 or 4 times before moving on. Now Pettingill recaps the Intercontinental Championship match, once again essentially giving us a verbal highlight reel with no visuals at all. We'll go back to ringside where Vince informs us that Bam Bam is going to be here to formally apologize. The crowd is chanting Diesel loudly, and as Shawn Michaels says, "Can you believe that?" An old bald guy that's seated behind Vince is getting in there hard, shaking his fist in the rhythm of the Diesel chant and putting all of his feeling into it, staring daggers at Shawn Michaels. I did notice the TK on Shawn Michaels' glove here. Thank you for pointing that out last week, Joe. I'll be watching out for it soon.
At one point, he kissed it. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, did he? No, I didn't notice that.
Mm-hmm.
I do miss seeing her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old Themis. We'll cut to commercial here, and when we come back, there are clips of a very sweaty, very enthusiastic William Shatner walking up the entryway with Bret Hart, shouting about Tech War. Before we move on, Joe, what did you think about the fact that we were treated to another Royal Rumble report after the Royal Rumble is over and all that was contained therein?
It was a bit out of the ordinary because he recapped the entire fucking event. Usually it's just, a quick cryptic message to get you to order the encore. But, this was way too long.
Yeah, completely agree. Way too long and unnecessary right after the Royal Rumble. The one thing I did want to mention, though, is Michaels correctly pointing out when they come back to ringside that the moron petting zoo didn't even mention that Shawn Michaels won the Royal Rumble, the name of the report. He didn't even give us the results of that match. So,
well, you got to call your cable provider to find out who wins.
I'm glad you guys mentioned it because I had it in my notes, but then I deleted it because I didn't know. I didn't want to assume before we went on with the rest of the episode, but I was pretty positive that this whole thing was distinctly because they weren't giving any kind of even still shots of the event. There wasn't any kind of video clips, nothing. I really suspected it was just a ploy to get people to buy the encore presentation. But then they only mention the encore once in the rest of the episode.
But even so, immediately after that, we go to Shawn Michaels telling everyone that he won. So it's not like you're keeping it a secret from anyone that wants to order it.
And they introduced him at the beginning of the show as the winner. Yeah. But here's what's weird. This encore presentation, if you heard, well, we're going to get into this next match, which kind of talks about it a little bit, but they're calling this an encore plus. I don't know what that means.
Oh.
And also, it's not, now typically they would be on Tuesday night after the pay-per-view, but this one is next Tuesday night. Vince kept saying that, so I don't know what the hell an encore plus presentation was. I don't remember. But
maybe the plus gave you the dark matches or something?
I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe we'll find out next week on Raw, since it's going to be airing before.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you guys have said on this Royal Rumble report. Just, yeah, I really thought that that he would cap it off with a pitch for the encore, but he really didn't. We're going to go now to our next match. IRS, Erwin R. Shyster, with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and two Druids defeat Buck Quartermain by pinfall in 2 minutes and 19 seconds. Buck Quartermain is already in the ring, and as I listen to the $1 Million Man's music as the non-jobbers of this match are coming down the entryway, Joe, I can really see what you meant whenever you said this was outdated. And I mean the whole, Wall Street, IRS, rich people are the enemy thing is definitely 80s at this point in the 90s. But that music is just so worn out. I can hear how people would have loved hating it back in the 80s, but it's just not doing anything for me here except make me wish I was about to watch something else. Really, really dated. You've got me coming around on that pretty hard. The action starts, and right away it's shitty. I think Buck Quartermain might have gotten a concussion already. There's a slight botch where it looks like the move was supposed to continue on a path that both workers weren't aware of. I'm not exactly sure, but it looks like Buck has a mini stroke on his knees before standing back up to insert his head back into IRS's hands. We're going to have Hot Rod, Roddy Piper, on the telephone now for some goddamn reason, and while I love Hot Rod, I have no clue why he's here now all of a sudden. This is basically a way for us to ignore what's going on in the ring. At least that's what Vince and Shawn are going to do, as they don't talk about the match at all. My personal favorite part of the conversation is when Roddy calls Shawn Michaels Cher.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the ring, IRS has been beating the shit out of Buck Quartermain nonstop. Vince pays attention long enough to yell, 1, 2, 3, IRS gets the pin here, and then goes back to ignoring what's going on in the ring. They've got that urn with them. I think it might have grown some more. It's the size of a small child as the corporation passes it back and forth. If it gets any bigger, Kama's going to start trying to beat the shit out of it. Ryan, what did you think of this epic new chapter in the ongoing saga between the IRS and the Undertaker?
As the match starts and they're walking down with the urn, over the last week, I've been doing my best to try and remove that memory from my mind. But as I see IRS coming down with the urn, it comes shooting back to the front of my head. But in typical ignore the jobber match fashion, Piper just calls in at the very beginning. We're just going to ignore it completely. I have to agree with him where he talks up Bam Bam and that he's one of the fastest 300-pound guys in the business. He's not wrong there. Eventually, there's a match. We come back to it long enough, like you said, for Vince to, IRS wins, now back to the call. And that's it. It's a terrible match because we don't hear anything about it. This may be the worst example of commentary not paying attention to a match that we've had. It happens often, but this was, they were as interested in this match as Wrasslin Raw is about the $1 Million Corporation feud with The Undertaker.
Yeah, I agree. The call took up the entire match. Normally, it's part of a match, and then they get back to the action, but yeah, the entire match. And I think it was, again, for this Encore Plus thing, whatever the hell that is. I guess we'll find out. I think Buck Quartermain maybe got a concussion just by watching the Bob Holly match early. I think he was concussed when he was in the ring already. The match is useless to even talk about. It's like it didn't even happen, really.
Yeah, agreement on both ends here with you guys. Isn't it just the damnedest thing how the Roddy Piper call lasted the exact length of the match?
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, no, longer than the match. They had to go back to it after a pinfall, don't forget.
Yeah. Well, we're going to move it to the next segment, which is a blatant MTV ripoff with some hip graphics saying WWF Week in Music. This is going to be couched, I guess, in the guise of a music review, but it's not. It's a debut vignette. As we leave the IRS match, Vince was yelling about going over to Man Mountain Rock, and here is the man himself. He's shredding away at the guitar with a really, really generic late 50s, early 60s inoffensive and non-threatening guitar solo. They actually did a decent job of filming the sequence. I can't tell if Man Mountain Rock is the actual performer, but I can't tell that it's not him either. It's time to go to school with Man Mountain Rock, and he hits some simple chords a couple times before we go to a coming soon graphic in that same MTV knockoff font. I can't help but think that this is a horrible and awkward name for what amounts to a modernized honky-tonk man. Joe, as our resident musician and contributing musical expert, what do you think of this whole Man Mountain Rock vignette and the character himself?
Yikes. This is bad. This is just Vince like, wow, you play guitar, huh, pal? And, just coming up with this terrible gimmick. Yeah, I don't know. I meant to watch this again, but I didn't because I was just like, fuck that. We'll probably see it again.
Why?
Because I wanted to see if, is this guy actually playing? Like you mentioned, Bartlett, is he really playing or not? But yeah, I didn't want to hear that again. That blues, that blues riff.
Yeah, this was terrible. I am not excited for Man Mountain Rock in the least.
I don't remember this at all.
No,
me neither,
and for good reason, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's not hard to believe.
I just can't get over Man Mountain Rock.
It is one of the one of the worst names until we get to our Jobber of the Week. One of his former ring names.
Well, it's like Man Mountain Rock. It's like saying it.
Well, what's funny is this is Max Payne from WCW,
right,
which they could have used. Yeah, but of course Vince hates using WCW names. So it's almost like he does it on purpose. Like, I'm going to give you a shitty name, and you got to prove yourself.
I remember you saying initially they wanted to make him the Blacksmith, which would have been a dumb gimmick for a wrestler as well, but it would have been better than Man Mountain Rock.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, really? I mean, it It astounds me that somebody thought that this name was a good idea. And I'm trying to think of maybe exceptions to this rule, but generally speaking, superstars' names kind of just roll off your tongue and are catchy.
And make sense.
Yeah, like Man Mountain. Like I'm looking at it typed on the screen and I can't parse. Is he a mountain of a man? Is the mountain made of rock? But no, he's playing the rock music. You can't make a mountain out of music. Fuck. It's horrible.
You just never know. It's like the Undertaker saying that he thought he was going to be called the Eggman and then became the Undertaker, and the rest is history.
Maybe if he was called the Eggman, he would have actually broke through.
Well, we'll move it along here, and apparently there's a King's Court, guys. Surprise! The ring is set up, and the King's guest is going to be the new WWF Intercontinental Champion, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. The King says, take a look at the threads. This is unbelievable, as Double J struts through the ring, and he's right. Double J's outfit is absolutely bananas. Double J cuts a promo on Razor Ramon, calling Razor out. And the King wants to know what's next for the IC champ, now on the Ain't I Great 95 tour. Double J says, well, I've been champion for quite a while, and Vince immediately pops with, quite a while? It's been 24 hours! Now we get to the point, and it's Double J calling out Diesel because he wants the WWF Championship belt. This entire time, the roadie has been kneeling at the King's throne, hamming it up in worship to Double J. It was short and to the point. Ryan, what did you think of this surprise King's Court?
Like you said, very short, and I typically like a good short King's Court. And Jeff Jarrett does a pretty good job, but to me, the real star of the show was the roadie, like has been the case when we see him fairly often. But when Jeff Jarrett came in and was doing his strutting, I just loved the roadie on his knees doing the like clear out motion, making sure people weren't trying to rush Jeff Jarrett. But yeah, roadie looked beautiful. Jeff Jarrett stumbled a tad at the very beginning, but then he cleared it up and it was a decent job. Perfectly fine King's Court.
Yeah, the outfit is incredible. Yeah. I loved it. The one thing that I noticed is that maybe this was a mistake because Double J just doesn't really seem to have much heat with this crowd. Like they're pretty silent. Nobody gives a shit that he's the champ right now, at least in this arena. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but him challenging Diesel for a title shot is kind of similar to when Diesel won his Intercontinental Championship. I think he was challenging for the big gold belt after that, too.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. This short, sweet, it did what it needed to do. It perpetuated a story, got some shit going, although I agree there was like zero interest in Jeff Jarrett here from the crowd. But nothing to complain about. That's what I asked for in King's Court, and I got what I want, so that was good. Next up, this Saturday at 10 a.m., 9 Central, WWF Mania will be covering the opening day of ticket sales at the Hartford Civic Center for Wrestlemania 11. Apparently, The Undertaker, Paul Bearer, The $1 Million Man, and Shawn Michaels will all be there live and in person while people are in line waiting to buy tickets. I can only assume that as soon as The Undertaker and Paul Bearer see The $1 Million Man there, they will immediately forget the fact that they're there for a promotional event and start beating the shit out of The $1 Million Man in an effort to get back the urn or find out where IRS is keeping it. Because those are the things you need to keep in mind when you're doing these fucking promotional things. WWF Mania this Saturday. I think this is the debut of the official WrestleMania 11 music. It sounds just like In Excess to me. And this is going to take us into our final match of the night. The British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, defeats the Black Phantom by pinfall in 3 minutes and 12 seconds. And the Black Phantom is our jobber of the week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Jason. The Black Phantom is this week's jobber. The Black Phantom was born David William Heath on February 16th, 1969 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Heath began training in his home state of Florida in 1987 under Boris Malenko and made his in-ring debut in 1988, wrestling for a number of Florida-based independent promotions. Over the years, he has used the ring names Claire Driver Reaper, the Avanti Roller, Crazy Dave, Dave Heath, the Druid, Lestat the Vampire, the Master, the Warlock, Vampire Warrior. Listen to this one. Property formerly of Dr. Wolf. That's the whole name. The Other Side of Darkness, the Black Phantom, and of course, Gangrel. In the early 1990s, Heath formed a tag team with Tom Nash, known as the Blackhearts. The Blackhearts were paired with Nash's real-life wife, WWF famed manager Luna. However, in 1993, the Blackhearts tag team and Nash's marriage to Luna would end, beginning a romantic relationship between Heath and Luna, as well as Heath beginning to develop his vampire gimmick as a single wrestler. They would eventually get married on Halloween 1994. The WWF, where Luna was working at the time, even aired a segment called Luna's Wedding to a Vampire. In late 93, Heath began working for the WWF in unaired matches, and on March 21st, 1994, he made his first TV appearance for the WWF as a jobber, the Black Phantom, in a loss to the 1-2-3 Kid. He would continue jobbing for the WWF under this name for the next 2 years before being released by the WWF in late 95. He would spend the rest of 95 in a short feud with Tommy Dreamer in the ECW, and made one appearance jobbing for WCW in 1998 in a tag team match, before returning to the WWF later that same year. However, this time, he was not being brought back as a jobber. Instead, he had the backing of writers Bruce Pritchard and Vince Russo, wanting to push his vampire gimmick. And on August 16th, 1998, Heath would debut as Gangrel, raising from beneath the stage in a ring of fire, slowly walking to the ring carrying a goblet of blood with him that he would stop and take a drink of and spit into the air before entering the ring. Shortly after debuting, he formed a gothic faction called The Brood, with new upcomers Edge and Christian. The Brood became known for their bloodbaths, which involved the lights going out, and when they came back on, the targeted wrestler was covered in blood and scared out of their minds. The Brood would also, for a short time, join forces with the Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness faction. In 1999, Gangrel briefly formed a new faction with the Hardy Boys called the New Brood, but that storyline quickly fizzled, and Heath spent the rest of 99 and 2000 as a singles mid-carder before being released in 2001. Outside of a couple random appearances throughout the 2000s, this would mark the end of Heath's WWF career. He would, however, still remain active in the wrestling world, showing up in a number of independent promotions over the years across the United States, UK, Canada, and Japan. He even has a movie under his belt. In May of 2000, Heath appeared, uncredited, as a prisoner with Crohn's disease in The Human Centipede 3.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Probably had a much higher budget than like Suburban Commando or
I don't know.
Santa with Muscles.
I'm not sure it did.
It's amazing to me that Vince did not even try this vampire gimmick for like a whole 4 years, but he's putting out Man Mountain Rock and fucking Mantar and Duke the Dumpster.
Say that one name again. You know which one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. I got to scroll up to it because it just makes no goddamn sense. Property formerly of Dr. Wolf.
Jeez.
Property formerly of Dr. Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like a...
I could only... Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, thank you, Ryan. Illuminating as always. And I have kind of fond memories of Gangrel from whenever we were teenagers and watching Attitude Era Wrestling. I never really was like super huge into him, or Edge and Christian for that matter, but it wasn't bad.
I certainly remember the shtick though.
Yeah. All right, well, back in our match here, Vince neglects the opportunity to talk about the Rocket's red glare as the British Bulldog comes down to the entryway and instead talks about Mabel and King Kong Bundy. And then Vince informs us that the Smoking Guns have indeed accepted the challenge from the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly for a tag team championship match. The Black Phantom is already in the ring as the Bulldog soaks in the crowd. There seemed to be a decent pop for the Bulldog. I'm glad to see it. We love the Bulldog around here. We'll have a quick promotional consideration paid for by the following, except this time it's Acclaim's Raw is War video game. The game looks great. We've come back in time for the bell to ring, and as it does, the Bulldog takes the time to hang over the ropes and shit-talk Shawn Michaels about the finish of the Royal Rumble. The Black Phantom takes advantage of the situation and gets to work on the Bulldog, going through a sequence that ends with a DDT that both the Phantom and the Bulldog sell to perfection. The Black Phantom attempts the pin, but the Bulldog presses the Black Phantom off, getting some elevation with it. It's always good to watch the Bulldog work. He's a powerhouse. The Bulldog puts the Black Phantom into a nice, stalling vertical suplex. It looked great. The majority of the time here, Vince and Shawn have been going back and forth about the finish of the Rumble, ignoring the match for the most part. And the whole time, the Black Phantom has been punctuating his moves with a high-pitched "Ree!" It's actually kind of funny. But what isn't funny is the position that the Black Phantom finds himself in, and the Bulldog gets the Phantom up and into a power slam. Nobody works a power slam quite like the British Bulldog. It looked fantastic. It's good enough to get a 3 count, and the Bulldog gives us a mighty flex while facing the hard camera. There's some more back and forth between the Bulldog and Shawn Michaels. The Bulldog is gesturing while Michaels makes faces at him. Then we get a final pitch for the call-in line. Remember, folks, 1-900 Shameless. Lines are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and every day at 10 p.m. Eastern, there will be a live update and late-breaking news. You can play WWF Royal Rumble trivia, even though the Rumble's over. And you can hear superstar interviews, all for the low, low price of $1.49 a minute. We're going to go to Bam Bam Bigelow, standing by, ready to apologize for his actions. Bam Bam's looking good here in a black suit kind of thing, like a Nehru jacket, I think, is what you'd call that. I'm not entirely sure, but he looked good in it. There's some audio difficulties, apparently, par for the course, and Bam Bam can't hear Vince as Vince repeats Bam Bam's name. Bam Bam is checking his watch impatiently, and we're going to get that figured out while we squeeze in a quick commercial break. Unfortunately, we're still unable to connect with Bam Bam. Next week, Mabel will face off with King Kong Bundy. The tag team title will be up for grabs again, Smoking Guns defending against the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly. Kama is going to be here next week, and we get a final shot of Bam Bam backstage yelling, "Can't we get this over with?" and shaking his head in frustration as we fade to black. Joe, what did you think of our last match of the night and the way that this episode ended?
Well, I want to go back to all the way back to the Mania commercial. I just think those commercials are so terrible. I don't know if you guys are as disgusted as I am with those commercials.
What's wrong with Mania?
They're so goofy. Like, if it's that goofy, I'm not going to watch. The match, again, it's another one where they're just talking about something other than the match the entire time. They're basically recapping the entire finish of the Royal Rumble. The match itself is kind of useless. Not that either guy looked bad, but nobody cared about it, clearly. The Bulldog and Michaels feud, I think, is something that could be interesting, but we know that it's going to be Shawn Michaels and Diesel feuding right now, so it's not really sparking my interest too much. Another thing I noticed was, and it happened a couple times on this episode, they appear to be teasing Shawn Michaels wanting another bodyguard, so that's something we'll want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for me, I agree with you, Bartlett. Not that you disagree, Joe. These two guys looked really good. Outside of it being ignored by Vince and Michaels on commentary, Black Phantom does a hell of a job. I really enjoyed him at the beginning of the match, taking advantage of the Michaels distraction on Bulldog, and then lands it with that beautiful looking DDT. Both people just did an excellent job of selling that DDT. It was a little bit easier to actually pay attention to this match just because the in-ring work was so much better than the IRS Buck Quartermain match. So even though they tried their best to distract us, I still found myself paying attention to it and got some enjoyment out of it. As we've said before, this is the type of match you want out of your star jobber match. The only other thing I wanted to point out, though, was I started to get kind of annoyed with the Vince McMahon telling Shawn Michaels that he cheated the Bulldog somehow, because I'm completely in Shawn Michaels' corner here. How did he cheat anyone? He did what you're supposed to do. He successfully kept himself from being knocked out of the ring, came back in, and knocked the Bulldog out. That seems perfectly fine and legal to me, but whatever. I enjoyed the match. As far as the Bam Bam apology goes, I laughed as it faded to black because they've been hyping this apology up all episode from the very opening of it to the end, and they can't pull it off because of technical difficulties.
Which happens so often, which I thought maybe happened with William Shatner there too.
Yeah.
A couple episodes. And Sean, this Mabel and King Kong Bundy match, did you guys hear Sean refer to them as the Blubber Boys?
Yeah.
Looks like he's looking forward to that match like we are.
Yeah.
It's an over-the-top rope match. Did you guys hear that?
No,
boy.
I missed that.
I vaguely heard something about it, and then whenever I was preparing my notes to give, my brief pitch for next week's show, I took a peek at the match card, and it's billed as an over-the-top rope match, meaning the only way that one of the people wins is by being tossed over the top rope.
Well, my pick is King Kong Bundy because I don't think he can physically go over the top rope.
No, didn't Mabel throw him out in during the Rumble?
Yeah, I don't...
Kinda.
He didn't throw him out.
Well, yeah, throw him out was a...
It was the slowest removal of a wrestler.
He didn't throw him out so much as lean him up against the ropes and then let his weight buckle the ropes down to the apron so that he could then roll out.
Very
He didn't
slowly.
go over the top rope.
Like Mo. Mo got tossed the fuck over.
Yeah.
rope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rightfully so.
Mo got the bum rush. Yeah, this match was great as far as the in-ring work goes. I really enjoyed watching it. As you said, Ryan, that the way they sold that DDT was great. The way they were selling all of their power moves was great. For the ending of it, with that Bam Bam apology thing, do you guys think that there was actually technical difficulties, or do you think this was just them pretending like there was to keep him from actually having to apologize, and therefore we get more of this next week?
Yeah, I think there was actually technical difficulties just because it's known to have so many backstage technical difficulties with audio. Yeah. I think it's probably legit.
I think if it's a work, it's a bad idea because it just happens too often.
I don't know, just the way that Bam Bam was behaving and being impatient and yelling and just, I don't know, it kind of came off as a work to me. But then again, as you say, it happens so often, it's really impossible to tell. And if it's impossible to tell, that's the best kind of work of all, as far as I'm concerned.
I think the way Vince is working the whole thing is pretty bad. Just because, like at the beginning, I legitimately thought they were going to announce a wrestler's death at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I am looking for, I remember this happening, Bam Bam versus Lawrence Taylor, but I don't remember all the weekly things leading up to it. So I'm kind of enjoying it right now. I hope they keep it going.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Absolutely. I loved it back in the day, and I don't remember the teensy little details, and we're not going to have that much of it because it's really only a month's worth that we get to watch before WrestleMania comes around, I think. Or no, is it 2 months worth? Royal Rumble's end of January, and then WrestleMania's second weekend of March?
It's in April, beginning of April.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so 2 months. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm very very much looking forward to seeing how they play this out. All right, well, that ends this episode. We're going to move it on to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, why don't you go first?
My highlight is going to be the 1-2-3 Kid, Bob Holly versus Smoking Guns match for the tag team belts. I mean, it was a really good match. Both teams put in great effort. It was a pay-per-view length match. We don't typically get, as I said when watching it, we don't typically get these type of matches on Raw, especially on the Raw following a big pay-per-view event. These are usually really duds. These are usually dud episodes. The low light, and really, I don't have that many. I felt that this was a pretty strong Raw, but if I had to pick one, it's going to be the throwaway IRS match versus Buck Quartermain. The way that they just completely ignored it to talk to Piper the whole time was a little bit ridiculous, but either way, it wasn't that terrible. And overall, I thought a really solid Raw.
My highlight was the interview after that match. But yeah, I enjoyed the match itself as well. It was probably one of the more entertaining matches we've had on Raw so far in 1995, for sure, these first few weeks. Low light for me, I'm going to say it again, I'm kind of disappointed with the reaction that Double J got as Intercontinental Champ. It just doesn't seem like he has much heat going with the crowd.
Those are great picks, both of you, and I'm going to go right down the middle, right in between you. My highlight of the night was that interview after the tag team championship match. It was just great. We've already said enough, as much as needs to be said about that, but it was great. And my low light, Ryan, I'm agreeing with you on this one. It's kind of hard to pick one because overall, this was a fairly solid episode of Raw. But that being said, that IRS match just, the commentary talked over and basically threw away two matches tonight. And of the two, the work in them wasn't really all that bad. Black Phantom and British Bulldog was much better. But at the same time, how can we say anything really about a match that nobody in the episode bothered to say anything about? At least with the British Bulldog, there was some mentions of the ring action. And with IRS, there was none at all, except for the pinfall. So that's going to be my low light. All right. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news for us from on and around January 23rd, 1995?
I do. We are fresh off the Royal Rumble, and I gave all the Royal Rumble results from the reader polls and everything like that from the Observer last week. This week, Meltzer gave the tag match, the Smoking Guns versus 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly, 3 stars. He rips the Smoking Guns for their working punches, saying they look awful. I didn't really notice. I don't have an opinion.
I didn't notice it either.
Yeah. But I would like to hear him say that to Bart Gunn's face. He also mentions that most of the wrestlers' reaction to William Shatner was negative. The belief was that he was mostly stuck up backstage.
As a Trekkie, that is pretty in line with
accurate.
What everyone has to say about William Shatner.
Yeah, because he doesn't really, I mean, from what I've heard, he doesn't really have the respect of all of his former castmates, correct? From the original series.
Respect maybe isn't the word, but they all hated him.
Yeah.
He's an ass and a dick is pretty much what it comes down to.
He's an ass and a dick.
Yeah, he's both.
I think we briefly mentioned it, but Meltzer mentions it here in this week's Observer that they're airing WWF Mania live from the ticket office. I think, Bartlett, you went over that. Yeah. So I guess, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good idea is to get people to tune in to Mania. Otherwise, any other week, why would you watch it, you know?
Well, for petting zoo.
Yeah. WWF Mania.
I was just that whole thing. I totally agree with what you're saying there. You know, it's a good thing to get people to tune in. It's a good way to get people to show up and buy tickets. But I just can't get past that whole having the Undertaker and the $1 Million Man there at the same time idea. That doesn't seem like a good way to keep up kayfabe. That's all.
Hawking WrestleMania tickets together.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I have noted here is that I am personally just kind of disappointed that there's nothing noted in here on why the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly held the titles for less than 24 hours. He doesn't even mention it at all. So it's kind of weird, but that is all I have this week.
Has, in the past few weeks since that first announcement, did he never mention anything about this supposed rodeo injury?
There may have been something in there, but I don't remember seeing anything about that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing he mentioned was that they replaced them in the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing about that tag match is I thought it was better than the championship match at the Royal Rumble too.
I was thinking about that exact thing, and I kind of agree, except for when Bam Bam and 1-2-3 were in there. That was just incredible.
Yeah,
good point. But overall, as a encompassing match, I totally agree. I think in total, it was a better match.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too. If we're thinking about things in strictly tag team terms, but I can't get past thinking of the championship match from the Royal Rumble as a singles match, really. I mean, it was all about 1-2-3 Kid and Bam Bam for me. So to me, it's kind of like an apples and oranges comparison. They're just not the same kind of match that you could compare them like that, you know?
Well, yeah, and Bob Holly was better in this one than he was at the Royal Rumble. Plus, you had the interview after. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah.
Classic.
Very true.
Classic.
All right. Well, that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. While you're there, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on January 30th, 1995, with matches featuring David Sierra, Kama, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.